We have Alice Maurer, Jeffrey Hart, Aaron Lundstedt could not be with us, he had prior commitment, Kevin Hugh, and Pat Brody. These are 4-year terms, 4 seats to be filled, correct? For the candidates I just mentioned, Ellen, Jeff, Kevin, and Patrick. 2-year term, 1 seat to be filled, and we have Chris Holt and Mackenzie Thurman here. So let's jump right into it, guys.
There's 6 up there.
Okay.
So they're all.
How do you think we can make what students learn in high school more relevant to the jobs of the 21st century?
I think one way we can begin to make education more relevant to the 21st century is incorporating putting students in the first world environment to learn from actual businesses and nonprofits within the community. I think something that's offered that is incredibly unique to college students that we see lacking in the high school level is things along the lines of internships or fellowships. Many people in this room at one point in their lives probably did something like an internship and contest to the notion that there is no better way to learn than actual first world experiences. So I think by putting our young people out in the real world themselves, we can not just increase their ability to operate within the 21st century, but we can also give businesses and nonprofits within our community tools that they did not have before. We can offer mentorship programs to help young people grow. So I think the best way to go about doing that is putting these people into the community and letting them learn from people within this community that want to help bring people up. There are many people in this room that own businesses or do small profit work, and they want to give those opportunities to young people. So we need to work with those community groups and businesses to make something like this happen. Thank you.
You know, I think one thing that you might not always get in high school is the opportunity to work with teams on a project. And not just a project that's academically based, but maybe a project that has value to the school in general. And maybe even projects that the school board is thinking about working on and they would like to have the student input. The thing I found challenging coming out of college is not having opportunities to work in teams across matrix organizations where you work with different functions, and different people, different personalities, and different backgrounds and career choices. So I think if the administration would look at opportunities for students to do that, they would be more prepared for life after high school and college.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of things that we're doing today that are actually really helping us in this regard, not the least of which are some of the technology initiatives that we've deployed over the last 2 years to really give kids the tools that they need to, capture the amount of information that they do. The thing that impresses me the most about young kids today, and I compare it to myself when I was in high school a long, long time ago, their ability to gather and understand information, I think, is really unprecedented. In fact, a couple of years ago, I had a chance to speak at Congress, and the thing I was trying to get these congressional leaders to understand is we can't get in their way. We've got to give them the tools and the techniques that they need to be able to learn things at a much faster pace than any of us ever did. The other thing that I think we do a lot of is we take them through interviews. I've interviewed some of the kids at Libertyville High School in particular, and quite frankly, their interview skills are better than some of the people that I interview at work. And so I think the communication skills that they're developing, their ability to talk to people, and their ability to organize their time. I'm amazed at their ability to master their complex schedules. Many of us have people that actually do that for us, and they do a better job. So I think we're teaching them a lot of core skills. We need to continue to challenge ourselves and continue to stretch them and continue to invest in our people and our staff so that they can actually learn the techniques and tools that they need to inspire our young kids.
I think we need to re-engineer and redo this whole thing, because I think right now if you walk into any restaurant, you'll see kids looking at their cell phones, looking at their iPads, and not carrying on conversations. And so again, with all said and done, I think currently the STEM programs and things like that, Libertyville's education is top notch. How are their communication skills of the kids? I don't know. I'd like to see us focus a lot more on the communication skills. I'd also like to see us focus a lot more on people's abilities to interact with people who have different viewpoints. Instead of accepting what, again, we live in a great community, I call it the Liverpool bubble. I'd like to see us be able to go out and understand other viewpoints, because right now we have a lot of animosity in the world, and I think the kids nowadays need to learn how to handle that animosity in a professional manner, but also communicate those skills. We might not always agree, we might disagree, but we always need to listen and stop ignoring each other. So.
I actually think what we need to do is expand on some of the things we're already doing. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One, I'm the treasurer for the Foundation for Learning for the high school district. And for those of you who don't know it, it's like the Athletic Booster Club, but it's for academics. And you know, we funded over $200,000 of innovation grants, which the teachers apply for, but their students are involved in coming up with the idea, planning it, it has to be presented and funded, and then they actually have to take part of it and report back. And I think that gives some real life experience beyond just taking tests. We should be doing more of that. Secondly, look, college was for me, college might not be for everybody. There are trade jobs out there that we need to be at least having kids prepared for if that's the path they choose to take. Now we do some already with College of Clay County, so I mean there is some kind of trade, not so much college-driven education, but I'd like to see more opportunities like that as well.
I think we do an incredibly good job of preparing our students for 21st century learning and for their jobs, and we know that because they come back and tell us that. The anecdotal evidence that we've collected over the years tells us that the kids, when they're doing interviews, Pat's right, they interview better than 50% of the people I interview every year. These kids, they collaborate with each other, whether it's through technology or face-to-face. They have problem-solving skills. They come up with the problems we have and then find ways to solve them. Our kids are being trained in our high schools at an incredible level. And we know that because they come back and tell us.
Okay, this one has a little context. We'll start with you, Alan. Congrats on your high rankings. However, these rankings are often based on the number of students taking AP classes. I'd like to know what can be done to better serve the students caught in the middle. Not the AP and not special ed. Those kids are often ignored because they don't speak up.
Well, the rankings aren't just on AP scores. We also look at ACT and SAT scores. We also measure ourselves against standards of how many kids are participating in non-academic opportunities, how many are in clubs, how many are in sports, how many are in fine arts. And we set goals for our staff to make sure that the majority of the students are involved in things besides academics. And the awards are not just based on one set of test scores. We don't actively go out and search for awards. They're just given to us for some reason. Whatever criteria different magazines and journals use are applied to us. These are not awards that the district goes out and applies for or seeks. You know, we just do the best that we can for kids, and it just happens. It happens that way because we've got an incredible staff, an incredible set of administrators, and I like to think that we work together. We don't argue amongst ourselves. We have healthy discussion, but the board works together for the good of the students.
Yeah, I would stress that, you know, we do a good job, and when you look at our high schools, it's not just the AP classes, though those are pretty impressive statistics. But when you look at just average HEC scores and things like that, I mean, we were a very high-performing school district. We got materially better over the last 5 or 6 years from an already high starting point. You don't do that by just making the best better. You've got to bring up the bottom and have all the students be better. So I think we already do a pretty good job with a lot of that. I think the challenge going forward is to continue improving, but it's going to have to be a balance, because a good, high-quality school district is good for our kids, and it's good for us, our property values, but we still have to have the ability to differentiate between what's really improving education and what's just spending more money in education. I think that's going to be a big challenge for us going forward.
Well, back in 1986, when I graduated from Libertyville, I was quite a bit different. We had a lot more focus on overall overall being good citizens. Nowadays, a lot of stress on these kids. Have to be the best. In fact, my kid's going to Libertyville next year and honors this, honors that, AP this, AP that. A lot of stress. And at the end of the day, I pulled her aside and we looked at the mission statement. You know how many academic things were on that mission statement? There was one. And I think the mission statement, a lot, so comprehensive. But if we all read the mission statement, what it really says is that our responsibility is to raise good kids. Doesn't have to be the smartest kid. In fact, my son's not the sharpest tool in the shed. But you know what? He's going to be successful because he is the best communicator. And he has a smile on his face. And people gravitate to him. And that's really what I want to see the kids going back to being happy. And that's why my first answer was communication. If you focus everything around communication and academics, you're going to be high performing. I assure you. You might, and it's going to be in the trades. You got to be able to communicate the trades. I mean, former Mayor Harder, he's in the trades. He's got to be able to communicate. Kenny Aldridge in the trades. He's got to be able to communicate. So at the end of the day, again, you're going to hear me say it over and over again: communication is key.
Thanks, Kevin. I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the most important things we do, or among the most important things we do, are all the education we do outside of the classroom. I know I've said this many times, we do measure a lot of the performance metrics in our academic performance. It's harder to measure the softer things. But if I really look at where my own kids learned and where they really learned some of their most important life skills, it's those things that happen after the last bell rang. Okay? That is where they learn their communication skills. That is where they learn to give presentations. And it's where they learn a lot of the things that I know they continue to use every day today. The other thing that impresses me about, well, first of all, I'd like to give kudos to any and everybody that may have been here when the decision was made to create the second high school. Because I think one of the strengths of this district is when you compare our schools to some of the other local schools, because we have 2 high schools in this district, almost everybody in both of our high schools can really pursue whatever dreams they have. Okay? I know for a fact, one of my kids wasn't the best basketball player in the world, but she played, and she enjoyed that. Okay? And it made her feel part of the team. And I think we give kids those kinds of opportunities so they can pursue their dreams. They don't have to be the, call it, sharpest pencil in the box. But I think it's a lot of the things we do from an extracurricular activity perspective that are really important. And last, I'll emphasize, there's nothing like being in our high schools over the Christmas holiday season, because when you see the things they do to actually give back to the community, there's lessons all of us could learn if we actually look at what's going on in both these high schools.
Well, it's really tough to add to the answers for people ahead of you. But what I would say is, I grew up in a small town about 4 hours south of here, and my high school was 153 people in the entire school. The entire school, 153. So I'm not sure I knew what ACT was until about a week before the academic council told us we had to take an ACT exam. So I have one daughter that graduated from Libertyville High School. I have a daughter there right now, and for me, the middle ground, I think is the question was, but the middle ground is pretty phenomenal. And my oldest daughter, looking at her friends that graduated from Libertyville High School, just about every one of them went to a quality college. And I don't know if those girls and boys were middle ground, but I think regardless, given what LHS, and my kids went to LHS, given what they have to surround them, not only academically, but with extracurriculars, they're in pretty good shape.
I just want to put a little context into myself while I add to this contextually based question, and that is, I was a graduate of Libertyville High School, and I can contest firsthand to this notion of we often focus on the top 10% and the bottom 10%. You continuously hear about the good kids doing good things and the bad kids doing bad things, and too often we fail to recognize some of those people in the middle, that 80% or so. Was I the valedictorian? No. I wasn't at 80%, and Libertyville prepared me well enough to be in this position where I feel comfortable enough running for this position. And I need to thank several members of the board and the superintendent himself for showing that 80% as much respect that they deserve as the students in the top 10%. I think too often school is seen as a place to educate one intellectually, and many people fail to see that it is where people are educated socially. Being intelligent is only half the battle. You need to know how to implement that skill into a real world scenario. And this district has prepared me extraordinarily well to do so. And I want to thank them for doing that, and I want to say that this is one of the best school districts in the United States in preparing students for the real world.
Thank you. I'm going to call audible here. We got one more question, then I am going to allow you guys, we'll do 60 seconds of a closing statement, okay? This question is around finances. What is the current amount of cash and investments available at the district, and your thoughts on the finances in general?
So, as of this year, the district is receiving roughly $82 million in revenue and spending $84 million, not including the $6.2 million in bond and interest and $8 million more associated capital projects. So as you can see, we're running roughly a $16 million deficit if you plan to spend $8 million for capital projects. So that already is a problem to begin with, not taking into consideration the potential property tax freeze and a pension cost shift, which could have significant impacts on the district itself. So I think everyone up here would agree that the future financial outlook is not the best, to say the least, and the only way we're going to be able to move through that is to work with the community in a way where we can make sure our students still receive the same level of education as they currently are, while ensuring that we are able to keep property taxes low. If we have to freeze property taxes, the school could lose roughly $2 million a year, and if pension costs are shifted back onto the district, by 2027, that could be $13 million that the district is cumulatively lost. So are the financial outlooks good? No, but we need to all work together to find a way to solve this while ensuring our students get the education that they deserve.
I'm not so sure I would characterize as the deficit of $16 million. I think part of that was tax abatement over the last few years, plus paying off the levy. So I think from an operating perspective, it's not quite that dramatic. But I wouldn't discount the challenges that are on the board. There are issues at the state level on budget and property taxes. We heard from the mayoral candidates and trustees. So I think the challenge for the board going forward is to look at how we can maximize the revenue that we will get, and probably have to take some hard looks at programs and offerings that the school has today and make some tough decisions. So I think for me as a newcomer, not having the opportunity to be in board meetings for the last few years, is to go in and listen and learn as much as I can and ask good questions and help the board collaboratively make good fiscal decisions.
Thanks, Chris. So I would characterize the district financials as being healthy, but I would also share the concern that the outlook going forward is somewhat concerning. I would echo the concerns that some of that depends on what Springfield does, although I must admit that we don't actually get a lot of revenue from Springfield. We get a couple of $1 million from Springfield on an $80+ million budget. The concern with Springfield is the costs that they're going to shift to us, whether they be pension costs or whether or not they prohibit our ability to raise additional revenue by freezing property taxes. Mackenzie's right, property tax freeze would probably cost us about $2 million a year. $2 million may not sound like a lot, but 5 years out, that's actually an annual rate of about $10 million a year. Okay, and just to put it in perspective, first let me just answer the question on the reserves or the state of the finances. I think we started the year a little over $80 million in reserves, and I know there's a lot of you that will look at our monthly statements and they'll see that there's a lot more money there than $80 million. That's because we receive early taxes to pay next year's bills, okay, and so we don't count those as part of reserves. Ending this year will probably end with roughly $60, $65 million, depending on how much we spend on the pool. Okay, but just to put this in context, going forward, for every $1 million that we would actually save or find a way to cut, that would probably translate into about $75 savings for any of you that have a $600,000 house.
So when you look at the district's financial statements and you look at their annual report, it's ironic, we don't operate in a deficit position. If you look over the last decade, we've taken between $2 million up to $14 million each year into what's called our net position. In simple terms, net position is your asset statement as a human being. Your houses, your investments, and your cash. Our houses are about $70 million of property in the financials. We have about $55 million that are set aside restricted. The board, they've dedicated those monies, they're going to be spent in manner we've already dedicated. And as Pat alluded to, we have a little bit north of $60 million set aside in the reserve. Ironically enough, a decade ago, the reserve, $60 million. So I'm hoping that when I get on the board, I'm hoping to add the reserve policy. We need to figure out if that's a prudent use of taxpayer money. Why we didn't use debt, when the debt markets were amazing over the past decade, and make sure the taxpayers keep their money, I don't know. Again, the current board does a great job with education. People, fantastic, look at our results. Let's just put a different perspective on the financial statements. So,
yeah, I would echo that the district has been very well managed today financially, at least from everything I can see. The trouble is the sledding's about to get a lot tougher as we go forward. The couple of things I would highlight is I think just in general, the board's going to have to be very disciplined in what we do and don't spend money on. And that's going to be something we have to deal with every time it comes up, as opposed to today we cut here. But the trouble with cutting budgets is the quality of the school goes down, all of our housing prices are going to go down. We don't want that, so it has to be looked at closely. I think one of the silver linings here is the majority of the cost, north of 70% for compensation, is paying teachers. That's contractually guaranteed. That contract's coming up due in a year or two, so we're getting to a point where we might actually be able to address that the biggest expense item in the near future to maybe help a bit.
I don't want to repeat what's already been said. So I'll just say that we have won the Meritorious Budgeting Award for as long as I've been on the board, 12 years. We do a great job keeping our finances in check. Yes, we are looking at a deficit budget this year. However, you have to make sure that you do have reserves, a significant enough amount of reserves so that if the state or whoever doesn't pay you, you still have the ability to run the district. Investments, I think investments was asked about. It's hard to remember when you're the last person sitting on the end. We can't just invest the taxpayer money the way that we would our own money. Should we choose to do that, there are laws that regulate that. We have to put our money for investments into something that's very safe, very secure, that isn't taking a big risk with taxpayer dollars, and rightly so. You wouldn't expect us to do that.
Ellen, if you would, 60-second closing statement from each of you.
All right, 60 seconds. I've been on the board for 12 years. I want to stay for the hard times as well as the good times. This is not the time, as one of my colleagues put it, to cut and run just because things are getting tough. I think it's going to take a lot of experience and a lot of depth and knowledge to come through these times ahead. I'd like to consider lobbying the state for a more evidence-based model of funding, as has been proposed, because it's not right that the burden falls on the property tax owners, and that's really what happens in Illinois. So I'd like to see us lobby Springfield a little bit harder for that evidence-based model so that we're not dependent on property tax.
Yeah, I mean, I've hit it a couple times, but I think the real key here is balance. I mean, quality of education is really important for our kids and our home values. We also have to be fiscally conservative and kind of have the balance between the two. I'm fiscally conservative. If you don't believe me, my wife Trisha's back there, she'll tell you I try to keep her from spending as much money as I can. But at the end of the day, I bring a lot of financial experience. I mean, a BA in economics and a BA in finance. I've been a financial analyst for decades and partner in my firm. I think I bring a lot of experience along with that fiscal conservativeness to maybe help us kind of get through the next few years, because the most important thing is to keep our schools kind of as high achieving as they are and maybe even get better.
So in my past life, I had a great job. I was the pension manager for the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund. So that's a $10 billion pension fund. And why I say it was great was because every day my phone would ring about 6 times. Karen Lewis, the Chicago Teachers Union, would call and yell at me. Mayor Emanuel would call and yell at me. Speaker Madigan, he called me once, he yelled. But I also got to experience teachers. So from that point of view, I got to learn what it meant to be a fiduciary to the pension fund, to take care of their pension fund, and that was very important. I was also fortunate Governor Clinton put me on the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. Governor Ronner made me the chairman. What that seems to tell you is that I can get along with many different groups of people and achieve a common good. And so that's what I'd really like to do to this board. The current board members need to be thanked. They're amazing. I just bring a little bit of financial perspective and the ability to take on challenges.
Thanks, Kevin. So I guess I'm the lucky one. I've also done this for 12 years, and I get called by Dr. Lee all the time, and I've never been yelled at. So thank you. But you know, and those of you that are for term limits probably won't like those of us who have been up here for 12 years. I would have never dreamed I would be up here after almost 12 years and saying I want to do this one more time. But I do because I understand that I think the next 4 years will be harder than the last 12. I know we face some significant challenges. But truthfully, this is one of the most rewarding things that I've done, because when you see the impact of what we do on the lives of the kids that we serve, it makes it all worth it. Okay? And so I want to be there to advocate for excellent programs. I want to be there to advocate for fiscal responsibility. I want to be there to advocate for equal rights for all students and staff. And I want to be there to advocate for open and transparent communication for all of you.
So I've spent the last 25 years in industry here locally at Abbott and AbbVie, and the 5 years prior to that I was in the United States Navy as a naval officer. And so throughout the course of that 30 years, I've been leading teams and part of organizations where, for the most part, you have issues that you have to address, and sometimes they're very difficult, and the decisions aren't right in front of your face, and you have to discuss and collaborate and get different viewpoints to make those decisions. So that's what I feel I can bring to the board. We've lived in Libertyville for 20 years, so we're invested here. My wife owns a business here. We think Libertyville High School is terrific. I think our kids have gotten an excellent education and soon have a graduate in a couple of years. So I haven't served the community probably to the extent that I've taken back, and I'm ready to do that, so I appreciate your support.
I think Ellen and Pat would both contest to the fact that one of the school board's strongest things it has going for them is its diversity in skill sets. There are a perfect combination of educators, businessmen, and people involved in the construction and trades, which allows expert decision makers regarding anything the board decides to bring to the table. What I want to bring in is a youthful perspective that offers relatability to the students themselves. As a graduate of Libertyville High School in 2011, I just walked the path. And I want to represent all young people that are currently going through the schooling system themselves and be their advocate on the school board, their voting individual and their representatives. And I hope you will allow for one more diverse member of the school board to bring this school board from where it is now to the top. When I hear people talking about us plateauing, that makes me upset, because we still have room to grow and we need to grow further. Thank you.